In this lesson on preferences, we'll build on the information in the previous lesson on app settings. Let me show you the documentation on different types of preferences on the developer's website. First, search on Android.preference and click on this link to the package summary, and then scroll down to the classes. And here we see links for checkbox preference, dialog preference, etc. Let's click on checkbox preference, and here we find a description of the XML attributes possible, including attributes inherited from the preference class. So the set of possibilities for preference settings is pretty large. I think the best approach for learning all of these is for you to be driven by the apps you'll be developing and research the preferences as you need them. In the meantime, you can scan through the developer's website preference pages I've pointed out. You can also use the Preference API demos to see more of preferences in action. In our worksheet, we can see we have 9 preference demos without any secondary or tertiary groupings. And let's check out what the demos can do. So here's the preferences demos, and we'll go through them. Preferences from XML demonstrate displaying preference values stored as XML values. Launching preferences demonstrates launching the display of preferences as the result of a button click. Preference dependencies demonstrates displaying hierarchical preference values triggered by checkbox event. Default values demonstrates changing preference default values, such as checkbox, changing text, and lists. Preferences from code demonstrates creating preferences using Java code. And note that using a field such as text, you can store values that'll be retained across uses of the app. And this is how preferences become a storage option. You wouldn't want to use this for large amounts of data, but it's a great option for retaining small chunks of data. So, for example, you could have code that stores data in a text field, say my data or my data, and then when the app is restarted, so we save it and restart it, the text string is still there. Advanced preferences demonstrates changing preference values, such as clicking on my preference, it's changing it to 1.9, 10, 1.11, and we have a haunted preference that's changing itself through Java code. Fragment demonstrates displaying preferences in a display fragment. Headers demonstrates stacking header displays. And finally, switch demonstrates changing switches in preferences. So that's our lesson on preferences, and coupled with the previous lesson on settings, you should have a good idea how preference settings work.